Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. Liverpool beat Hertha Berlin by 3-0 in today's pre-season friendly, and all things considered, it was a pretty good performance all round. I think the team gelled together pretty well. It was nice to see them linking up a little bit better than maybe they have in pre-season friendlies so far this season. So it's clear that I think training groundwork is starting to pay off a little bit. I think that the current training camp that they're on in Germany is probably now a little bit more orientated around playing as a team rather than just getting back to full fitness. So that was nice to see. There were some good individual performances in there as well, which I'll talk about later on in the video. Starting off with the first half, I think things got off to a slightly sluggish start. I think a lot of that was to do with the fact that Hertha Berlin sat back a lot. I think they know that that's probably the best way to defend and probably the best way to play in general against Liverpool if you want a result and a good performance. And so it did take Liverpool a while to get involved in it. They didn't really look like they wanted to completely go for it because of Hertha Berlin's sat back. There was a lot of sideways passing and everything like we saw last season when Liverpool were playing against the smaller teams in the Premier League. But fortunately, they do have a player in their ranks who is capable of dealing with these situations very well in Mr. Dominic Solanke, who took his chance very well to give Liverpool the lead on about the 18th or 19th minute. I think it was quite a difficult chance for him because while it was very good from Lallana to actually be able to pick him out in that position in quite a crowded penalty area and to loft that ball over all of the Hertha Berlin defence, it still left Solanke with a lot to do because the ball was kind of behind him. So he needed to actually move his head quite a lot and he needed to do all of the generating power himself. And he was only really left with one option, and that was to chip the keeper. And, you know, he did it very, very well. I mean, you could argue that the keeper probably could have done a little bit better in that situation, but take nothing away from Dominic Solanke because it was a very good finish. And it just shows that he's that kind of player who simply knows where the goal is. And Liverpool need a lot more of those players. We've kind of got it with Daniel Sturridge, but we need more of those players who, when they get the ball in the box and they get a decent chance, it's more likely that they're going to score than not. Because a lot of our players, when they get the ball in those kind of situations, it's 50-50 or less whether or not they're actually going to score. Whereas Solanke seems to be the kind of player who gets the ball there and you just kind of presume that he's going to score. He's kind of like Diego Costa in that regard, which shouldn't necessarily be surprising given that having played at Chelsea, he's probably learnt a lot from playing alongside Diego Costa while being there. So he is a very good player for Liverpool to have, and I think it's good that so far this pre-season he's proved that he's actually a lot further on in his development as a player than I think we maybe thought he was when he first signed. I mean, when he first signed, we thought of him as this kind of plan B player, a bit of a battering ram kind of striker, someone who's capable of scoring goals when we need it, and maybe a bit of a plan B in terms of hold-up play and just keeping the ball in the opposition half later on in games when Liverpool are holding on to a lead. But when he first arrived, given his age and his lack of actual experience playing first-team football for Chelsea, I think we kind of thought that he wasn't really going to have to be able to play that much of a role in the first team going into this season. He simply wouldn't have enough experience and he wouldn't be quite old enough to take that step yet. But the more we see of him in pre-season, I mean, he looks absolutely fine and he looks more than capable of taking on those responsibilities. I mean, when you think about it, when we play Watford on the first day of the Premier League season, if Liverpool brought on Dom Solanke in about the 70th, 75th minute of that game, I don't think any of us would have a problem with that. I think we'd be absolutely fine because he's shown that he is capable of dealing with those situations. So he's a very good signing that Liverpool have made. I'm very excited to see what he can do at the club. He also contributed a fair bit to the second goal as well. He won the ball incredibly well, which is also good because it shows that with all of those attributes that he brings that I mentioned earlier, he can also play Jurgen Klopp's gegenpressing system. He closed down the Hertha Berlin defender in a place on the pitch where maybe it didn't look like too much was on, but he closed him down, he forced a mistake, passed to Sadio Mane and ended up creating that chance for Gini Wijnaldum to score. Does that count as a Gini Wijnaldum away goal? Not really, in my opinion. I think it was nice to see him get a goal away from home, but I'd like to see him get one in the league as well, just to convince us that the curse is definitely over. But good to see Gini Wijnaldum get a goal. Very clever play from him to completely wrong foot the goalkeeper. I think absolutely expected him to go to the keeper's left. He slid it down to the keeper's right. Didn't even need to put that much power on it because of the cleverness behind putting the shot there. And Liverpool got themselves 2-0 up. And all in all, a pretty good performance in that first half. Emre Can was one of the most impressive players in that half for me because even though he's only just got back from his holidays effectively, and this was his first game of pre-season and he was thrown straight into that starting 11, he just never never looked, he looked like he'd never been away, basically. He just strode around the pitch, looked completely comfortable. He controlled the players well. And there was just that one moment where he picked up the ball in his own half, deep in his own half. Nothing looked on. There were barely any players in front of him. So he just charged through the whole of the Hertha Berlin team. I mean, there must have been at least 3 players there who tried to go in for the challenge and just had no chance of getting the ball off Emre Can. And that's what we want to be seeing from him. And if Liverpool don't get Naby Keita, which according to recent reports looks like it might sadly be quite likely, then Emre Can will have to fulfil that role of that dynamic box-to-box midfielder that I think Liverpool need if they're going to be challenging for the league title next season. So Emre Can was very good, and I think it's easy to forget that he's only 23 years old. So I think we put a lot more pressure on Emre Can than we actually need to. And given that he's turning 24 in January this season, he's only just going to be starting to hit that phase where he's going to need to start being a really influential figure for Liverpool. And he's going to need to be able to be that kind of player, that Steven Gerrard kind of player who can pull his finger out when things aren't going well and drive the team forward. And if you ask me, he already looks like he's ready to fulfill that kind of role for the club. So fantastic to see him back from injury, and hopefully he can keep up these good performances for the rest of pre-season and going into the Premier League campaign. Sadio Mane was also playing his first game back for pre-season, coming back from his injury that he sustained against Everton. Effectively, it was his first game back from that, and I think he was still recovering from it during pre-season training, which is why his return has been a little bit delayed compared to other players, and he wasn't quite there. I think his touch wasn't quite there, and he wasn't quite doing the amazing things that he was doing last season. But the important thing for me is that he looked like he was getting there. He had the right ideas. He was trying to put himself in the right situations. And I think with a bit more game time and a bit more time to build himself back to full match sharpness, Sadio Mane should be more than back to what he was at last season, where he was absolutely tearing defences apart. So no worries there. Just exciting really to see that Sadio Mane is back, and hopefully he can kick on a little bit more in the next few pre-season games. Special mention as well to Ranier Klavan, who I thought had a very good game in that first half, because I think Hertha Berlin, they kind of targeted him in that game. I think Moreno had a bit of a tough game as well. He was getting spun this way and that quite a lot by Hertha Berlin's right-sided players, and Klavan bore the brunt of that quite a lot because of obviously being a left-sided centre-back. Once they got past Moreno, it was up to him to stop them scoring any goals. And also because of Liverpool's midfield, it was quite an attacking midfield with Can, Wijnaldum and Lallana. None of those players are necessarily completely defensive-minded, so a few chances did leak in. And I think because Liverpool had Matip and Klavan as their centre-backs in that first half, they're both ex-Bundesliga players, so Hertha Berlin knew a lot about them. And so they definitely targeted Ranier Klavan, knowing that he was the weaker centre-back out of the two. And I think he dealt incredibly well with that. He was put under a lot of pressure in various situations. A lot of players were hassling him physically and trying to force errors from him. And he didn't really make any errors during that whole half. He dealt with it all well. He looked very calm. He looked composed on the ball. And he didn't really let too many chances get past him. So very good from Ranier Klavan. Especially given that, because, you know, he's a good footballer, but he's not going to be one of Liverpool's first choice centre-backs next season. He's probably going to be third or maybe fourth choice, depending on whether we sign Van Dijk. Fingers crossed for that as well. But seeing as he is going to be that backup option, when he does come in for a player like Lovren, Matip or potentially Van Dijk, opposition players are going to target him simply because they're going to recognise him as that weak link, and they're going to try and force errors from him, especially knowing that he had a little bit of a hit and miss campaign last time out in the Premier League. So it's good to see that Ranier Klavan is dealing with that well, and it makes me feel a little bit better about the idea of Ranier Klavan playing for Liverpool in those big games, because on this channel in the past I have mentioned that I'm a little bit frightened by the prospect of Ranier Klavan playing in the Champions League for Liverpool. It does keep me up at night quite a little bit. But given the performance he put in today, and hopefully he can carry on putting in those performances, I might feel a little bit better about Ranier Klavan playing in those games. So a great performance from him. Nice to see. Moving on to the second half, and I think the only moment that really needs talking about from that second half is the absolutely gorgeous goal that Liverpool scored through Mohamed Salah. And of course you've got to mention Philippe Coutinho as well, because Coutinho's pass was just incredible. I mean, to pass that distance the way he did, where if you look closely, he doesn't even really put his foot through the ball that much. He doesn't put that much power behind it. He basically dinks it half the length of a football pitch over the entire Berlin midfield and defensive effectively, and he perfectly found Mohamed Salah. It landed right where Mohamed Salah needed it to then just chip it over the goalkeeper like it was nothing. I mean, that was incredible football, and the best thing is they made it look so easy. And that's good, because that means that they can probably do that kind of thing an awful lot during this season. So it makes me very excited for what Coutinho and Salah and the other attackers can do for Liverpool going into next season. I mean, Coutinho, he's just better in that number 8 role for me. I mean, we saw him at left wing in the first half of the match, and he wasn't necessarily bad in that position. He wasn't top Coutinho, but he was still playing well. He was spinning defenders left, right and centre and everything. But when he goes into that deeper number 8 role in midfield, he just seems more influential. He seems to create more goals. He seems to score more goals. He seems to actually be more involved in the attacking play and bring more end product to his game when he plays in that deeper role. I think partially because it gives him a lot more space. He can see a lot more of what's going on about him because when he's playing that deeper role, he can see Mohamed Salah ahead of him. And it showed that Coutinho does play best in that slightly more withdrawn role, because it's like when he first arrived at Liverpool and he had Daniel Sturridge in front of him who was making all those darting runs, and he could just play the ball straight through to Sturridge's feet, bypass the entire defence and create brilliant chances. And with Mohamed Salah in the team, hopefully he can carry on doing that again on a regular basis. And the finish from Salah was absolutely sublime. I mean, to be a winger and to be able to finish like that on a regular basis as well, because remember, this is the 3rd goal in 4 games he's scored this pre-season, especially when you're considering that that means he's only played about 45 to 60 minutes per game. That is a fantastic return for a winger. And the 3 goals that he's scored have shown that he is a top finisher in many different regards. And for a winger to both be a fantastic winger and to be able to finish like that regularly, that means that he belongs in the top class of wingers in the world for me, because there are many good wingers in the world who can't finish like Mohamed Salah clearly can. And so to be able to do that shows that he does belong in that top bracket. And so he is the kind of player that Liverpool need in their squad if they want to be challenging for the Premier League title and in the Champions League as well. So it's absolutely fantastic to have him here. So I'm just looking forward to seeing more of him, to be honest. It's like Sadio Mane last season, where just having him getting on the ball is exciting because you don't know what he's going to do next, but you know that whatever it is, it's going to be exciting. So very happy to have Mohamed Salah at the club. Hopefully he can continue this. Andrew Robertson made his debut in that second half as well, and he was pretty impressive if you ask me. He struggled a little bit defensively at first. He was in the same kind of position as Moreno, where I think Hertha Berlin just had some very good players on that right flank, and he was caught out a little bit in the box. I think he was spun a few times and left on the floor, made himself look a little bit silly. But in terms of attacking contribution, he was very, very good. And he showed pretty much straight away why Liverpool have signed him and why they want him as competition for James Milner, because in that half alone, he attacked probably more than James Milner did all of last season in terms of actually attacking in a way that's ferocious, incisive, and actually creates chances. He was way ahead of what James Milner is capable of, if you ask me. I mean, he had a shot off straight away before, about a minute and a half into his debut, and he did test the keeper as well. That was on target. And I think the standout moment for me was when he was released on that left flank and he just put the afterburners on, tried to go as fast as he could to get past that Berlin defence, and then whips in a cross on his left foot that just about evaded Mohamed Salah. And I think if he carries on doing that, then he is going to create chances and he is going to get some assists and contribute big to the Liverpool attack, which is what we wanted from our new left back. So hopefully Andrew Robertson can provide that going forward. Finally, I think Daniel Sturridge played pretty well in that second half as well. I think he was pretty sharp. It's nice to see that he seems to have perhaps finally put those injury problems behind him. He's looking sharp in pre-season, which he hasn't done for a very long time. He hasn't really had a proper pre-season at Liverpool now for about 3 years, I think. I think the last one was the summer of 2014. So it's good to see him get some proper preparation in before the Premier League season actually starts, and he seems to be reaping the benefits of it already. If I had one criticism of it, it was that he probably needs to bring his teammates into the game a tiny bit more, because it's a common criticism of Daniel Sturridge that people say that he doesn't pass enough and that he always shoots, and he is a finisher, he is that kind of player, so you have to expect him to shoot pretty much whenever he gets the chance. But I think there were just a few occasions where he needs to get his head up a little more and he needs to look out for more players in and around him, because sometimes there are just players that are in better positions than him, and there are players who are actually more likely to score than him if he simply passes the ball to him, if he simply passes the ball to them, I mean. But it's kind of understandable because it's pre-season, and as a striker, you're expecting him to just desperately be trying to get goals because he'll want to prove himself and he'll want to prove that he can be Liverpool's #1 striker, because I think he knows that he has enough quality to be that, and he wants to prove that to Jurgen Klopp before the season actually starts. But There's been talk all the time about whether or not Daniel Sturridge suits Jurgen Klopp's system, and I think if he just gets his head up that little bit more and puts in a little bit more effort to bring his teammates into play, then he could silence those doubts, he could get those critics all to shut up and show that he can actually play Klopp's system, provided he just brings his teammates into play a tiny bit more. So all in all, it was a good performance from Liverpool. I think it's still not quite there in some regards, that the final ball is sometimes missing, the final finish is sometimes missing, and the team doesn't quite gel in a few situations, but given that we've still got 2 weeks and I think 3 more pre-season friendlies to go before the season kicks off, that shouldn't really be a massive worry, because I mean, Liverpool didn't really fully hit their stride last pre-season until that game against Barcelona at Wembley where they won 4-0, and that was their second to last friendly, and that was 8 days before the Premier League season started. So it's not a massive worry at the moment, but hopefully Liverpool can just step things up ever so slightly in these last few games to show that they're 100% ready for the new season. I think I'd also like to see our defence get tested a tiny bit more, simply because there's been a lot of talk about Jurgen Klopp putting a lot of emphasis on the defence this pre-season, simply because he and I think most Liverpool fans were not happy with how many goals we conceded last season. He's talked about how he thinks that the defence needs to be more focused. Ranyar Klavan, I think, is someone who in an interview talked about all the work that's been done defensively, and Liverpool's defence hasn't really been tested that much so far this pre-season. We've had a few instances where we conceded against Leicester and we conceded against Wigan where it looked like those same problems with regards to set pieces and crosses into the box were continuing. So I'd quite like to see our defence get tested a little bit more before the season actually starts, to prove that those problems might actually finally be going away. But given that we're playing Bayern on Tuesday and then we play again on Wednesday in the Audi Cup against what will probably be another top standard team in Europe, I think that we'll hopefully at some point during those games see our defence get tested a little bit more, and we'll have a much better idea of how they're going to perform when the Premier League season starts. So that's all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, why not give it a like? If you're new around here as well, the like button's not there. That's where the subscribe button is. If you're new around here, why not hit subscribe right there? And if you are new around here, then don't forget to check out some of the other videos on the channel as well. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter as well, and I'll see you in a bit. Bye for now.